Today we are so thrilled to hear from great-grandma Susanna Starr, who has Starr Interiors in town that Roy is now running, her darling son. She is an entrepreneur, photographer, speaker, artist, writer, holds a degree in philosophy from State University of New York. She has the International Food, Wine, and Travel Writers Association's Regional Membership Coordinator for the Riviera Maya and Oaxaca, Mexico. And she's a board member of the Travel Writers Association, mother of 4, grandma and great-grandma. She created one of the first eco-resorts and retreats in the Yucatan and hosted groups and individuals for over 20 years. She's the author of 2 acclaimed books, 50 and Beyond, New Beginnings in Health and Wellbeing, and Our Interwoven Lives with the ZAPOTEC Weavers, who have their weavings at her store, Starr Interiors. Having recently turned 90, she's filled with good health and vitality. Go, Susanna! She has turned her attention to aging with joy, helping people reframe and reclaim the process of becoming true elders as she truly is. Welcome, thank you for speaking to us today. Hooray!
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Jenny Bird, for inviting me. It's a nice chance to be with the community and to be able to talk a little bit to my peers about things that I think we're all concerned with. But first, I'm going to look at a few notes. This, by the way, I have brought, I think it applies to almost everyone here, 50 and beyond. I'm not part of the great beyond yet, but we're getting closer. And it's a time that we can either lament about all the things that are happening, all the lacks that have occurred, the lack of our body listening to us the way that it did 20 years ago or 30 years ago. I can no longer pick up 2 rocks at a time. It's just 1 at a time now. And we find it in so many of our friends, our neighbors, our family, the changes that take place. And what I'd like to do is talk about this a little bit later, because I think we are all part of that community, or most of us are part of that community. But first, because it's Mother's Day, I do want to honor Mother Earth, as you already did, Jenny, because it is the energy that prevails and has prevailed, and until artificial intelligence takes over, the mother image will be with us, and the mother energy. And the mother energy is, forgive me if I refer to these notes once in a while, because there is kind of a theme where I'd like to start out by talking about mother energy. It isn't, as I think we all know, confined simply to those of us who are mothers, grandmothers, and if you are fortunate and blessed, great-grandmothers. But that kind of energy pervades every society, every culture. We honor the mother. We honor Mother Earth, the source of everything and that to which we return. When I first heard of the theme that we were going to be discussing this morning, I thought of the storyteller. Most of us, I think, are familiar with the image of the storyteller that we have here in New Mexico. The older woman who is sitting on the ground, surrounded by babies and little children. And that is an image that is very, very prevalent in many, many cultures. It is so very basic. We have exactly the same image in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, which is the other part of the lives of my family, because we have been living there for well, visiting in the beginning, but living there for at least 40 some odd years and visiting for more than 50 years, otherwise known as half a century. That sounds a lot more, doesn't it? But it's interesting to see that it's the very same image that we have that is so universal. And when I think about the storyteller, I think about the guardian of our stories, our common heritage. We don't have to have necessarily our own children to love and to cherish. There are so many children, our neighbors' children, the unknown children in our own community, and then, of course, as the ripples extend, to the world's community of children. They are the next generation. And I have seen now, to my amazement, 4 generations, me being the oldest of my particular family. Some time ago, I became, I think by default, the matriarch. And I'm blessed to have my other children who live close by. Not everybody can say that, but I've been able to see them grow. To go from the kids that were at school, I was known as either Mirabai's mom, or Roy's mom, or Amy's mom. And then I became a person in my own right, and I was known as either Susanna or Susie, depending on how much time we'd spent together. And once again, I'm the mom, and the grandma, and the great-grandma. And it is truly a source of incredible pleasure to see not only my own family, but to see in my great-grandson, who happens to be adorable.
Of course.
And much to everyone's surprise, is really smart. And very entertaining. And just a source of joy to all of us. This child is surrounded by joy. And I often think of what he is given all the time. This child wakes up smiling. I think you know what that's like, Jenny Birdie. He wakes up smiling because I think he is just inundated with love. That's what he has known. And I can't help but thinking about children all over the world. That if only they had that opportunity of love and to be cherished and appreciated and to share in that joy, what a different world it would be if we could reach out and embrace the children that we have, because they are the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And before I end this, I would like to take a little look at what the next generations are headed for in our contemporary society, right here, right now. The other thing I really wanted to begin by saying is that we don't necessarily have to be women to be a mother. I think that the mother's energy is within each of us, male, female. My father was a very nurturing father, adored grandfather, and did he ever get to be a great-grandfather? Yes, he did. And he was still changing diapers and walking kids in strollers and taking care of them with the kind of compassion and care and love that a mother has, that we associate with a mother, but not necessarily confined to a mother, nor is it necessarily confined to a birth child. The caring and the compassion and the nurturing that we associate with the mother's energy, and that I feel is all pervasive, is something that is within us all to call upon at any time. I think there are decades when we kind of get ourselves so very involved with everyday life, especially if you have children, you have a family. There was no way that I could possibly pay the kind of attention to my own children. There were 4. They were spaced nicely so that one could go to nursery school and time to stay home with for the others to be taken care of. But it isn't until your children are grown and you are no longer only their mother, which is almost like a title and a role, a cherished one, but it becomes, for those of us who have grown children, a much deeper, caring, loving friendship that goes along with being a mother. And my children have been incredibly supportive to me in times of need. As someone once said to me, a friend without need is a friend indeed. And that is true too. In times when there wasn't any real need, they were there. In times when I was broken, they were there. And for this, I have to thank my own children, but for the children that we all share too. I think when I talk about the image of the storyteller, we're at a juncture in time that I think we can all feel and see and realize pretty much every moment now we are inundated with what's going on with information and more information and more information until we spend hours and hours of our daily lives assimilating more information. Information is not necessarily knowledge, it's information. And it's kind of neutral. Knowledge is what's absorbed. And if we get to the point where we've absorbed enough of that knowledge, I think it manifests itself, we hope, as wisdom. So it's a step from the knowledge that we're inundated, the information that we're inundated with, to the knowledge that we hope to acquire, to the wisdom that we finally can sit in and rest in, and understand that this time in our lives is different, just like adolescence is different, young adulthood is different, certainly early childhood is different. But I think with the population living longer, it has become much more noticeable to us that we have these years, and how do we live them and how do we approach them? Do we lament all that we don't have, looking at that glass half empty? Or can we look at the glass fuller? Because there is a lot to fill that glass. We don't necessarily have to live in the past to lament that which we no longer have, but we can turn it into celebration for what we have had. Those of us who have traveled a lot in our lives, that part of our life is probably not the same, nor will it ever be, especially the sharing with the partner, whoever the partner was. We don't have it, but we have done it, and that will be part of who we are. And that's part of the gifts that we shared. And with every partnership, whether it's a committed, long-term partnership of sharing a life partnership, or whether it's a casual kind of knowing someone and in a chance encounter, exchanging words that we still remember. I came out of motor vehicle division about a year ago, and someone said something to me that resonated. I didn't know that I would ever see this person again, so I just wrote it down, since I no longer trust my memory to remember from the time I left the motor vehicle division till I got into the car. So I did write it down. And it was a chance encounter. I've had lots of them, and I'm sure you have too. The thing that you don't know is what your words might have meant to someone else. So when our thoughts are transmuted into words, our words carry meaning. And the words that we do exchange with a stranger can have a lasting effect on that stranger, just as theirs can on ours. So I guess what I'll refer to these notes once in a while as soon as I manage to get off this little digression. But I think that being a great-grandmother has given me new insight. Some of us like to show photographs of sunsets that we've taken. I like to do that too. Of the flowers that we've seen, and I like to do that too. Some pictures of family gatherings, I like to do that too. Some pictures of our pets, we all like to do that. But the pictures that come through stories are something else. And I find myself coming up with little tidbits that maybe you didn't know, or you didn't know, or some of my friends might have known, that I remember, and they're important. And if our stories can be passed down with what we have learned, not as sermons on the mount, and I must admit that I was guilty of doing that for a lot of years, but not as sermons, but as examples of what we have learned, the lessons that we have learned, not what should be done, could be done, would have been done. That's part of the past that we don't change and can't change. But have we learned from them? That's different. That's a different way of looking at the past. And looking at the future, as we just referred to, is not looking at the future with lamenting it, but with looking at what can be done. There are people who are sitting here that I know that go to the same exercise class that I do. And it's wonderful. It's invigorating. And it's another community. It's a community of people that exercise was important to us always. When I wrote 50 and Beyond, that was one of the most important chapters. This book that I wrote a long time ago, I brought it with me because I just reread it recently to see if I could touch base with what I wrote then, and sure enough, it still holds up. The mind-body-spirit connection. And now that we're older, we need to keep up with taking care of our bodies. I just had a little bit of a wake-up call the first time in my life that I have fractured bone. I've gone a long time, so I can't lament it. I will celebrate that that's all that happened. And it was a small bone in my foot. But it was a learning lesson for me. It's not that I haven't been aware of being conscious as much as I possibly can, but we all slip, we all fall, and we all have a little wake-up from that time. And that wake-up is just be more careful, be more conscious, and learn from it. And it slowed me down there for about a month or so. But gradually, I think I feel, my energy has returned. I can drive again, and I can be out talking to people again. I can meet my friends for lunch again. And I can be down on the mat doing exercise again. I think what I am trying to get to is the essence of what these years really bring. And I think that this is a time of fusion. The knowledge that I refer to, that comes from the information that we absorb, but the other kind of knowledge, the internal knowledge. It also comes from lived experience. And the lived experience is something that artificial intelligence won't be able to do. It can be programmed to do it, but in itself, it can't learn from the lived experience. So if nothing else, if we ever feel kind of down and feel like, oh my God, I have to spend so much time just trying to take care of myself, and pills and injections and doctor's visits, and what's wrong? Is it something that I need to pay attention to? Is it going to pass? Whatever it is, rather than lament the little things, it is it is this time of care for ourselves that's so important. You know, just as we get on a plane, we're always told to strap ourselves in before we strap in the child that might be next to us, because we're no good if we're not there. So we do need to take care of ourselves, and that's an okay thing. I never felt that it was worth my time and effort, you know, to take the kind of care that I might have when I was at the time when I was busy doing things. So this is a time of this particular season, no longer springtime, and it certainly isn't summer. I think we kind of have done fall sometimes, not all of us here. Some of us are still in autumn. It's a wonderful time of reaping the harvest of our experiences. But I think for many of us, we are approaching winter. And that is a time that we know life is going on under the earth all the time. A lot of growth, a lot of nourishment, a lot of preparation for the spring to emerge. We may not see that spring, but if we are here in the winter of our lives, it's a time of introspection, a time of maybe making a deeper connection with that spiritual aspect of ourselves, and not to be quite as caught up in the doing, but more time for the being. So I think that I like to keep in mind all the time the steps that we take that we may not be conscious of, but a part of the evolution of who we are. And that is, especially now, from the time of information to knowledge to wisdom. And I am, once again, reading philosophy. So I just got in touch with Kierkegaard recently, just to touch on what he had to say, because one of my all-time favorite quotes is, it's a leap of faith. It's without risk, there is no faith. And sometimes we do have to take that risk, whether it's a risk that he might have been referring to in a specific way because he was Catholic and felt very strongly Catholic as a practicing Catholic. We can take it in any way that is meaningful to us. That we need to take a risk with ourselves too. That we can't count on everything being the way that it has been. That there are risks all the time. And if we don't take those risks, how do we know that doors are going to open for us? So for whatever doors or whatever windows that may be coming to a close, there are new ones opening. The doors don't just close and we're left there in an empty corridor. There are always windows and always doors, always hallways. And it's nice to be able to travel those, because it's nice sometimes to have things that are unknown to us make their appearance in our lives. It's also a time that I think we can transform so many things. What I have down here is some of the things that we can transform. The anger and the impatience that we all seem to feel. It's most evident sometimes when we're driving. But we don't have any idea of what that other driver that we may have a different label for in a moment. We have no idea what's going on in their lives. So where I might have had impatience at the stupidity of what that other person might have been doing, I can try to rein that in and maybe turn that feeling of impatience, or maybe even a little flash of anger, into compassion, and trying to understand just because I don't know that other person and they're behaving in a way that is not cool at all, maybe I can think of them more fully as a person in their own right, with their own problems. We can transfer the Well, I put these in the wrong place if I want to see one. We can also transfer the kind of energy that we talk about as being negative. If we just take the time, we can transform that into something more positive. We may not love the act that took place, that triggered these emotional responses, but we can step back and not necessarily feel the impatience or the anger or whatever negative emotion it was. Just step back and not let it get to us, not let us influence us in any way, because we can easily find beauty somewhere, somehow. It may not be in the next instant, it could be in the next hour, it could be in that same day, but we're going to find it if we see it, because it's there around us all the time. All of this requires an open mind and an open heart. And once we could just get that mind of ours, not to get caught in circles, not to center so much on ourselves and the way that we feel and the way that we are, the things that are happening in the world that are so overwhelming right now. You know, it is the best and the worst, as we all have heard many times. But truly, this has got to be right up there with the violence, with
Right up there.
the lack of commitment to humanity in our honoring of the other person, in our honoring of the earth. And so we see the abuse and the violence, and it's easy enough to get just buried under all of that kind of negativity. It's overwhelming. And that's why I think it is so important that we focus on the open mind to find out what is true and what is enduring. Because so it all comes to pass, but certain things endure. And that's why we read the Greek philosophers, or we read Lao Tzu, or we read whoever our favorite people are, historical quotes that are as true today as they were when they were said thousands of years ago. I think it's time to look once again to the great wisdom, because an open mind leads to an open heart. The more open our heart is, the more space that we make to let other things enter. And although we may not always feel that love is the answer, it certainly is a pretty good one. And it is not only in receiving love, which is nice, it's reassuring, it's supportive, but it's in the ing part. It's in the active part, the giving of love. And if we can allow that, not to necessarily make it a purposeful thing, but allow it to just bubble up from that internal source that we all have within us, loving of our family, of our community, of our earth, and of all the specific things, and specifically the greater family, this family of our children who are now our friends, as well as our children, which they always will be, or who they always will be, our grandchildren who we take such delight in seeing become the very fine human beings that they have always shown the promise to become, and the great-grandchildren, which truly, they are a gift. So thank you for the time to say a few words, maybe a few more than a few. And to thank everyone for being here, to thank you, Jenny, once again for this. and to thank Roy and Amy, my two children who are here, the friends that have come to hear me outside of our normal conversation. And if anybody has anything that they would like to discuss concerning their own experiences, their own wisdom, their own lessons, life lessons, I sure would love to hear it. What a silent crowd.
We're enraptured with you. Thank you.